Cool, awesome. Thanks everyone for joining. Um, it's a Thursday evening, right? Not bad compared to a Friday or a Saturday. But thank you so much for your time and joining. And first of all, again, let me thank Pratik for taking this time and coming here, and he will be sharing his insights about his journey into Web3 world. How he became a Solidity developer, and above all, some tips for you to land in a Web3 job. Thanks so much, Pratik, for taking time and for agreeing to do this. Really appreciate it. So, without further ado, like a couple of logistics, you should be able to see the chat option below. So feel free to put in your questions, but if you are not able to put in any questions, what we will do is at the end of the session, for about 10-15 minutes, we'll be taking questions live. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions directly to Pratik. On that note, without further ado, again, welcome, Pratik. Thank you so much for taking time and doing this. We'll just get started and deep dive. So Pratik, just help us a little bit about your background, what you have been doing, and how did the interest into the Web3 peak? What piqued your interest into Web3?
Sure. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. Even I was interested in talking to more people trying to get into Web3 and how the thought process is kind of going around. So first of all, about myself. So I have been into software development since past 4 years now. And since when I started, I was working as a full stack developer for around 2.5 or 3 years, mostly at product based early stage startups. And since then, I was also interested in stock markets, trading, investments, and all. Now, when this lockdown started, and then when the market crashed and all, I got interested in crypto. And again, as usual, as per my daily routine, I was just going through YouTube, and there was one guy called Tika Tiwari. If you guys know of him, so he was kind of preaching about how the next bull run will go and how it will turn about. So I got more interested in crypto then, and started with a bit of trading and all. Invested a couple of savings. So now, after doing some investments and all, I saw that investments and all are good. But again, the technology itself is also very exciting, and I saw that it is going somewhere, at least. And maybe I'll get something out of it, because after working for 3 years in as a full stack developer, I was kind of feeling a bit bored and kind of saturated about the work. Wanted to do something new. And at the right time, I got crypto. So started learning about how Ethereum works, and how the applications built on top of Ethereum works, what all have to be done to develop them. So the first time I started was so most of the times, whenever I want to learn something new, I go to YouTube and I see sample projects, what are the projects that people are doing and have done in the tech stack. So same for Ethereum, I went over and I saw a couple of to-do list apps and a couple of videos from Free Code Camp. They were around 10 to 16 hours. I did a couple of them. I sat down my weekends and completed a whole video end to end. I did not understand anything. I was just copying and pasting. So a couple of videos I did that, and then I got a bit of grasp on how things are kind of linking, because it was completely new, right? There is no backend, there is just the front end, and then there is something called blockchain which is running somewhere in the world, and there is a plugin in your Chrome which you are using to kind of interact with that blockchain. So it was completely new, and it took me quite a while, a couple of projects, to get a grasp on how things are connected to each other. Now once I did couple of projects, I thought that now it's time to kind of go deep and try to build something on my own. So then what I did is I went to Google and I saw what are these use cases that I can build, right? But the sad thing is I could not find anything because mostly everything was basic, and I could not come up with anything what to be built. Then I saw there is documentation for Solidity. I thought maybe I can go through the documentation and then I'll be more proficient and get some deeper insights into it. But again, it was so overwhelming that after a couple of reads, I lost my mind, and I again went back to the stage that yeah, I know the basics, but what next? So this was my first interaction with the blockchain development. Now after doing this, I went back to my daily job and kind of forgot about what I was doing. Then suddenly there was this community called Questbook. They were kind of developing tutorials on Ethereum and all. So I joined the community, and I was doing their tutorials. So it was kind of tutorials, text based tutorials, and hands-on kind of stuff. So you go through the tutorials and do line by line, you code line by line. So after doing a couple of them, so it was very new. Like when I joined the Discord, it was just starting up, and there were no people in the community apart from couple of 3 to 4 people, and I was the only one who was doing them as and when they're coming up. So um, the folks who were developing those tutorials and publishing them, they were also seeing that this guy is doing something. So I was giving them responses as well, feedbacks, improvements and all. So I was on the way, I was learning as well. So they actually offered me a job that you are anyways trying to learn it. We are also looking for someone who can review, who can improve the article, so why not do this full time? But again, I was a developer, right? I write code. I don't like to write articles and all. But then again, I saw that anyways I am learning it, and if I get to review and get paid for that, what's bad in it? So I just joined it as a part time. And after working there for around 2 to 3 months in part time, I published a couple of articles. And then I thought that nahi ab nahi ho payega. uh, like after I think 3 articles, and then I talked with my manager and said ki yaar, I wanted to move to development, and I think I'm done with the articles and all. So then my manager said that, yeah, I mean, they have also seen that, yeah, like, you know, the basic stuffs. And after developing a couple of articles, I got certain level of clarity. So I moved to development and got a couple of growth based projects, and they were not very technical in Solidity and web development side of stuff as well. But yeah, it was interesting projects. And after doing couple of, so one of the interesting projects I worked on was it's called dev3.xyz. It's live now as well, I guess. So where you can go to that website and connect your wallet, and you can check how many contracts you have deployed, how many transactions have been made through your wallet, and you'll get a score on basis of that. Now once you get a score, you can also claim a token, a dev3 token, if you have deployed any contracts on mainnet. So this was I thought, I saw that, yeah, this is something which I wanted to do above some basic concepts, right? And now once I did this project, it took me around a while, like it took me 2 weeks to complete this whole thing. And then I got the complete idea, like now, yeah, I can say that I am intermediate Solidity developer now. Now after completing that project, we got so Questbook started with their core product, development of the core product, which is a grant orchestration tool. Now that product was also a bit advanced thing. So like it involved a couple of design based decisions, like how many contracts can be there, how will they interact to each other, and what pattern can we use for achieving the final thing. Like there are multiple modules to it. Again, I'll talk more deeply about the project in a while. Now once that core product was done, I saw that yeah, I mean, this is it. Like now I know Solidity, and I can do anything which is required. Along the way, I did a lot of research, a lot of googling, and a lot of learning, uh, talking to a lot of people. Post that, I thought that now I think it's time to be more specialized and get into spaces like DeFi and all, where The code itself is very math heavy and very operation heavy stuff. uh, so yeah, I mean, that's the whole journey, and currently I'm working at HashStack. It's a great product, and basically a DeFi lending borrowing protocol under collateralized loans. So I
Awesome,
mean, this was
awesome.
the whole journey.
This is one of such an inspiring journeys, and it's a very candid journey, right? It's not that saying, okay, hey, I did this in 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and now I can claim as a Solidity developer. I think there is like a lot of struggle that went into it, and there was like a lot of persistence, perseverance, and never give up attitude, that I could see from what you were describing. Like you were working, but like there is so much of passion. So you started learning on the sidelines. You started, um, doing projects, that you wanted to build, and then slowly you built to the next level, and you became one of the great Solidity developers now. Very, very interesting, actually. So, to deep dive, Pratik, we'll talk about projects in a bit, but I think the first question that people generally have, whom are interacting, I think so many people, like most of us are developers here who are attending the event today. But for someone who is starting very new, right, so just they are so passionate about Web3 and they wanted to get into Web3, right? So how much of prior coding experience, or what sort of coding experience? You're a front-end developer, so you have some background there. So how much of prior experience is required, and if so, like what skill set do you suggest, for them to acquire before even deep diving into Web3? Or do you say that, okay, hey, those are not at all required, just go jump into Web3, start learning Solidity, start playing around to get started? What is the initial starting point for any developer?
Sure, sure. So actually, it depends on one thing: whether you want to be core Solidity smart contract developer, or you want to be an end-to-end full stack developer where you get to work on the contracts as well, the UI as well, and maybe some parts of backend as well. So if you're looking to kind of jumping into core smart contract development, then I think it's not required to be at all to have any knowledge on coding prior. So you can directly jump into like again beginning with the basics of blockchain, then reading a bit about Ethereum and fundamental levels, and then jumping right into Solidity. I think that should pretty much work out well.
Cool, awesome. Okay, so interesting. Okay, and you said you went around the YouTube, and then you figured out what to learn, like, and you structured the path to yourself, right? So coming back to the Solidity, right? And I know when we discussed, you gave a very detailed overview of the structure and the curriculum that one has to go through. But like, where should one get started? Like, what are the basic concepts that one should learn? Say ABC, and then when should one start getting into a project? Should they start working on project, get their hands wet right from day one, or what topics are needed to get to a comfort level and then start building projects?
Sure, sure. So actually, what I tend to do is even if I'm not working on any projects, but I try to find learning materials which are built upon projects. Like let's say there is a YouTube video which is explaining how to develop this to-do list app. Maybe I will not do code along, but I'll just sit around and watch it. So that kind of material really helps for beginning. Like uh, I try to do that only. Like without projects, if I get to learning from let's say any book or any documentations, I get lost, to be honest, and it's very difficult to get back to track then. And even if I get to some book or anything, I put a deadline. I will give only 1 or 2 days to this material, and then I won't spend any more time here. Even if I don't understand anything, it's fine. I'll move along.
Got it. So what you're saying is, even if someone doesn't understand it, just go watch these tutorials. And you made a very interesting point before that. Like initially, you were just copying the code and then like just executing it, right? And then in the whole process, you figured out, what are different sort of functions, constructors, whatnot, right? And all those technicalities along the whole process. So your recommendation is just get started, like, and get your hands with right from day one. Don't go into the I won't say the boring theory, but like, don't get too deep into the theory, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Awesome. Cool.
Even I agree that there is a bit of fear in the start that I might not be fully confident that if I am really doing it right or not. But trust me, like it works it this way. Even if you dive into theory, don't spend much time, like a day or two at max. Then start with projects. That works pretty much well.
Awesome. I mean, I think some of our developers are facing that, and we're actually pushing in the community saying that, okay, hey, don't worry at all. Even if you're not able to write, just go for it, right? Try. That one day it will happen.
Exactly.
I think we are on the same page and same thought process. Guys, keep the questions coming. Like I think this is break the code as much as possible is what I would say. Agree totally. Yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. We have a lot to cover, and happy to take as many questions as possible. So on that note, Pratik, so any specific projects generally, I know there are like bunch of projects out there in the on the internet, right? But if you have to divide, might be them into category of easy, intermediate, and advanced, like any suggestions on, like, 1 to 2 projects for the audience here to kind of play around, to get started with, might be they can pick up some GitHub code and then start learning. Any specific projects that you like?
Sure. I can share a couple of projects, like for, let's say, for beginning. Uh, as I said, one can be to-do list for very beginning one. And then once you get around with a bit of syntax and all, then maybe you can, for beginners, I think a to-do list is something which can cover everything. And basically you will get to know how the structure and how the data structure, how the syntax, how the logic, conditional flows and all work. And once that is done, again, apart from this, the main aspect of blockchain, right, the native currency, that is Ethereum. And then again, apart from it, there are other currencies, let's say ERC20s, there are NFTs. So once you're done with to-do list, you get to know about the logic execution, the syntax, basic syntax and all. Then you can start with playing around with how to deploy ERC20s, how to interact with ERC20s, or to be specific, how to interact with other contracts, basically cross contract interactions. That can be considered as a in between beginners and intermediate. Now let's say you are very comfortable with cross contract interactions. Now you'll have to kind of get to know about uh, how this interaction is happening, right? For doing that, you are writing a piece of code. Now in that piece of code, there are a couple of operations or couple of keywords that we are using. For example, call, there is a function called call. Now there is an alternate function to call called delegate call. Now these two are very different. Now difference between them, right? Once let's say you are doing a project, just get to know about each and every keywords and what they're doing and why they exist. So let's say cross contract interactions are done. An example of it can be, let's say you built an application wherein you are depositing some money to compound, or you are swapping a token using Uniswap, using your contract as an intermediary. So that can be one second level project. Now once that is done, for intermediate level, I would suggest uh, working on some project which requires design patterns involvement. For example, factory pattern. Now to give an example of the project, the Questbook product, right, that I worked on, it was basically a grants tool, wherein there are three components to it. One is, let's say, uh, the organizations or the DAOs. The next level would be the grants. So inside a DAO, there can be multiple grants. So this is the second component. The third component would be the applicants. So there can be multiple applicants applying to these grants, right? Now, each and every grant holds some amount of assets in it for giving out to applicants, right? Now, the problem was that how will we scale this to a way that each and every grant can have their individual control to the funds. Like there will be milestone based payments, there can be one payment at a time, and there can be several scenarios. Now to handle all these, what can we do is, let's say, for all the DAOs there can be one contract singleton, which is called singleton pattern. Now for grants we can have a factory pattern. Let's say there is a grant factory which will deploy for each grant it will deploy a separate new contract, then which will hold the funds for that specific grant, the data points for that specific grant, who all applied to the grant and all, etc., etc. And then again the third entity, that is applicants, it can again be a singleton contract. Now the interaction between all these contracts and how the funds are getting managed. So a project like this can be called as intermediate level project. Now again, I'm not giving a crisp project. I know it's not 100% like you can go and work on it, but again a high level view of a intermediate level project. Now again, if we talk about advanced projects, uh, to be honest, till now what advanced for me is, I can tell you about that, which is, let's say, the project that you did on the intermediate level, you try to make it upgradable, right? Now upgradable contracts are kind of uh, so a lot of projects are writing upgradable contracts right now because of the ability it provides to fix any bugs that come around the way, right? Because uh, there it has happened, like uh, there are a lot of protocols who have lost money and they can't do anything. They're just sitting around getting the liquidity drained out of the protocols because it can't be changed, right? The code can't be changed after it's deployed. So making it upgradable can be an advanced project. And again, upgradable contracts have a lot of I guess two main design principles which are currently in the market. One is a proxy pattern and the other is diamond standard. Now diamond standard is something which revolves around a lot of complex concepts in Solidity. So if you can get around that, I think you'll be in a very good position in the market, like to get any kind of job or to be skilled for executing any project. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. This is such a comprehensive information, man. And thank you so much. I think we got like so many questions. Like let's actually switch gears and then talk about the title of the topic and the discussion for today: how to land in a Web3 job. Because I got so many questions around that. So you work, you actually learned on your own. You did like multiple projects, and then you started working part-time with Facebook, and then eventually you started doing projects with Facebook, right? But from a typical Web3 job experience, right, or Web3 getting into a Web3 job, so what's your experience been? Like if you have to suggest, okay, let me take a step back and then ask this, right? So what are like one to top three things, one, two, three, that someone aspiring to be a Web3 developer or want to get into Web3 job, what are the like one, two, three things that they should have on their CV, or they should be prepared for, to take their first Web3 job interview?
Sure. uh, I think a couple of projects will do. Like as I said, for basic, for intermediary, there are different kind of project that you can work on. So if you have 2 to 3 projects in your portfolio, I think you are good enough to kind of crack any interviews. And again, if I break down the kind of questions that can come up in an interview, so basically what I have seen is there can be two kind of questions. So one can be at a fundamental level of blockchain, and another can be related to the smart contracts and the EVM itself. So again, on the fundamental level, basically you just need to know how transactions are validated, what is the role of miners, how they validate the transactions, what is the nonce, what is the difficulty, etc., etc. And once you have this clear idea, You can start working on the projects and put all the projects on GitHub, showcase them, post them on Twitter. And to be honest, you don't even have to go looking out for jobs. Jobs will come to you if properly it's showcased and all. I think Twitter is very much active right now. Like the Web3 uh, party is happening in Twitter. Yeah.
No, exactly. You read our mind again. In fact, like we are trying to have a Twitter session tomorrow on for the developers on how to develop their profile on Twitter and LinkedIn. Very interesting, actually. So that's what we've been also telling, right? Do the projects, push the reports to the GitHub, and then start showcasing them on Twitter and might be on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's a very good segue. I mean, that's a very good starting point. And as you rightly
Yeah.
mentioned, people will come and chase you. So one other interesting question, Pratik, I've been talking with a lot of developers of late, and we have like a lot of very interesting developers, here as well. So like as a developer, right? So how when you are evaluating the project, right? So I'm talking from the developer perspective. Uh, say I'm a firm, like I'm approaching you to hire for my project, right? But as a developer, how important is for you the team behind the project and the idea behind the project and the project itself? And as a developer, what will you see? Do you see that hey, does this project have a long-term potential? Will you go and read the light paper or white paper, before we apply for a job, or even once you start, before you even start interviewing? Like from a developer perspective, how should they evaluate projects? Which projects they should be interviewing, to? Or
Sure.
at this point of time, it is just like, okay, hey, might be that's the next level in the evaluation process in the blockchain ecosystem. Might be at this point of time, might be once you do the project, just go and pick up any project to work with. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure, sure. Like initially, I'll be like, let's say I'm trying to get into Web3 job, and I'm at a stage where I can take risks. And like, let's say I'm studying in a college, and I can do internships, part-time jobs. So for that matter, I won't be more interested in getting to know about the team and the project itself. I'll just take any kind of job that I get in Web3 and build my portfolio out of it. But let's say ki I am working as a software developer, and I have been working since a while now, and I don't want to take that risk. So in that case, again, if there is a possibility for working as a part time, I'll try to do that first. And while doing that, I'll get to know about the project and the team, and the synergy between the people working on the project. And so that can be one possibility. And if that's not possible, then I'll kind of look into what the project is trying to do, if it's making sense, and if the team behind it is have the domain expertise to execute and kind of think through the crisis. So I think that's very important, to be honest. And reading white paper and all, I think it's a good to have. If you read the white paper, get to know about the product in and out, it's beneficial for you. I mean, you'll be given more preference while doing the interviews, right? So but I think that's not necessary. But yeah, good to have.
Awesome, awesome. I really like the point when you mentioned, right? So straight out of college might be take risk, but like if you're already there in a Web2 world, if you have some experience, might be start working part-time, and then you can do a calculated risks there and then figure out, what the next journey could be. Great.
Exactly.
Okay. So I want to touch on one more topic, and then we will go to the questions. So how does a typical Web3 interview process look like, these days? So now you said 2 to 3 projects, profile building, etc. and all, but like when you go through the interview process itself, like how many stages does the process is these days, and how should one gear towards that? How should one prepare towards Web3 interviews?
Sure, sure. I think there is no fixed answer to that. I mean, it depends on the company and how your initial interview goes, actually. So even at HashTag, when we are hiring, we see that even in the intro round itself, if we get that vibe that yeah, this guy has the clarity and can do what we are looking for, then we cut down the interview process and we don't go much into details which might delay the process. So I have seen this in other companies as well. Like it might be like only 2 rounds of interviews where one is the technical, and even in technical they won't go into much technical details. They'll just ask you about what projects you have done, and in between of the projects they might ask some questions how that is implemented, and maybe if there can be some improvements that can be done and how it can be done. And after that, maybe a couple of minor questions, and even code alongs I have seen, like at hashtag itself. Like when I was interviewing, the problem statement that I was given was so there is a access registry contract that you have to work, that you have to build, and I have to make it upgradable using proxy pattern. So that was one hands-on question that I got, and I had to also develop a UI for that and make the interaction work. And I was given 3 hours for it, but I took 4 hours. So I think interview really depends on the companies. Somewhere you won't get much difficult questions. Somewhere, if you get hands-on questions, they can be tricky or easy as well. Like, uh, I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer to this.
No, I agree. There is nothing like a right or wrong answer, right? I think the industry is still catching up. It is still at a very nascent stage. There is a lot to happen in the blockchain industry per se. But to summarize, what you are saying is proof of work is more important. Talking about your projects in detail, and how you have written the contracts, whether you can, the advanced concepts, that's more important. And you are saying that if you get a real-time accesses, kind of start attempting that, right? So those are the uh, two things that needs to be taken into consideration, like for one preparing for a Web3 interview these days. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think on that note, great chat. Let me go through some questions. We have like loads of questions here. By the way, I really love the enthusiasm. Our community is great. Trust me. And by the way, guys, glad that you mentioned about factory smart contracts. That is coming up for you in a week or so. So stay tuned. It's not that we are not teaching you that. We'll be teaching factory smart contracts. Okay, cool. I think the first question is, what kind of level of knowledge is required? I think we covered that to get a job in Web3. What kind of questions to expect? We covered that just now. Actually, interview process, again, we covered that just now. Okay, I think this one question could be relevant. You touched upon that, Pratik, but if someone wants to be pure Solidity developer, how much of JavaScript experience do they need to have beforehand, or Python for that sake?
I think zero experience will work fine. Like you can be a great Solidity developer without even knowing JavaScript. Yep.
That's
And I've
such a
seen
comfort.
that. And I've seen that.
So that's such a comfort to a lot of developers here. Awesome, great. And again, this is another question which I go through in my mind a couple of times, and the developer community also go through, right? So why to learn Solidity to start with? Why prefer Solidity? Can you do Rust, or can you do Substrate or some other programming language, or what are the kind of the pros and cons of learning Solidity?
Sure. Actually, what's happening is currently, so there is a community behind Solidity, right? There are like thousands of projects built on Solidity. Then again, all the L1s, new L1s that are coming up, right? Let's say there are EVM based L1s, and there are non-EVM based L1s. For example, Solana, Near. They again, I think few are based on Rust, few are based on Golang. So I think Solidity is something which has caught the market, and right now there are. So if you try to learn Rust, and from the perspective of blockchain developer, it will be, you'll have a small segment of projects that you can target for maybe doing a job or working on a couple of projects. So you'll have a very limited target projects. While if you start picking up Solidity, you will have a great number of projects, like a lot of big protocols, and also the new L1s that are coming up, which are EVM based. So they are also they by default they'll support Solidity, right? So if you have written a contract in Solidity, you can deploy this on multiple chains, uh, which are also like, let's say, Avalanche, Phantom. These are uh, the new generation L1 chains, which are, if you write in Solidity, you can deploy on them as well. So for me, I think Solidity is something which has caught the market right now, and it's better to stick with it. The other language are, maybe if you are getting bored of Solidity, if you want to know about the other stuff, maybe you can get your hands on it. But yeah, for full time, I think Solidity is something which should be uh, worth going after.
No, great point. I think um, uh, our thesis also is right. We, we will be living in a multi-chain, kind of polar world, right? It's not going to be there is only one Ethereum, one Polygon, one Avalanche, or one Solana. These chains have to coexist with each other. And you made a super great point. I think completely aligned with that thesis there. If you write the code, using Solidity on EVM chain, it is very easy to deploy it on any other protocol, right? Whether it could be, for the sake of Polygon to reduce the gas fee, or Avalanche, or some other new EVM protocol. I think even Shardem is trying to use, EVM while building their product, right? It becomes very easy, and it becomes interoperable as well, right? It's not a tedious task to switch the contracts. Yeah.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. So the next question is this little technical. Any specific differences between using design patterns in JavaScript as compared to Solidity?
Okay. So I think a good way to look at it would be, so design patterns are what? Like they are, they help us writing good code, right? Maintainable code, scalable code, and maybe code with less bugs. So the design patterns are, people come up with design patterns on keeping in mind how the compiler is working, or how the underlying execution machine is working, right? So for example, in JavaScript, the design patterns that are present, they optimize how browser executes the JavaScript code. Now similarly in Solidity, what happens is the code is executed in EVM, right? So in EVM, how the storage is, how the layout of the storage is working, and how the codes are converted in assembly level or the opcodes, and then they are getting executed. So how can we optimize that? So for doing this kind of stuff, certain design patterns are kind of made in the market, and as well as for giving some application based utilities. For example, this diamond standard, right, for upgrading smart contracts. So I think it depends on the language itself and the underlying execution layer of the language. And I mean, it will definitely differ if the execution layer itself is different.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Thanks. So one last question for now. Okay. Um, okay. So our libraries like Web3.js and tools like Truffle, Hardhat, are how important are they while you are
Okay.
building?
So I think for beginning, I don't think they're important. Again, I think so. Web3.js is not related with Truffle or Hardhat or Ganache, because Web3.js is something which is used in the front end for interaction with the wallets and the blockchain. While the Truffle, Hardhat, Ganache, they are something which is helpful while writing some smart contract projects. And for beginning, I think Remix is the way to go for simple projects. And even I did that because it was very simple for me to kind of get started with it. Now once we are working on some big projects, then it will be good to have a local development environment, Now for setting up a local development environment for smart contracts, it's very difficult, right? Because there is one blockchain node that you have to run. You have to have a Solidity compiler for compiling the code. And again, you'll have to have wallets for interacting with the blockchain. So these tools help with making this whole process smoother and frictionless. So I think tools like Hardhat. Then there is one more tool that has come up very recently in market called Foundry. So these are, I think, very good tools. Once someone is comfortable with Solidity basic projects, I think they are very good to have under the belt. Because again, while developing anything, debugging is something which is very, very important. Like without debugging, you can't say that you are a good developer. So debugging, for easy debugging and all, these tools come in handy. Like without this, I don't think it will be easier for debugging and all.
Got it. Awesome. So, just for my knowledge, I mean, like we've been also researching as a community, like a lot of other tools. What are your thoughts on Alchemy? Have you guys used that? Like, have you come across Alchemy anytime?
So Alchemy, I think I have used Alchemy for their RPC nodes for interacting with the blockchain itself. And apart from that, I have not used Alchemy for anything. And I think the RPC URLs, they work fine. Like I have not faced any issues with them as well. And same for Infura. I've used both of them.
Got it. And one follow-up question to that, right? So when you were developing a project, so how important at this point of time is to learn something about graph and Filecoin, because these are query and storage protocols, right? So is it good to have knowledge, no, or like is it too early? Like at what stage this knowledge should come in?
I think it's not required for beginning with, but like once you get a job, if you get some requirements where it's necessary to deploy some subgraphs for analytical purposes, or maybe some any kind of purpose, then you may learn them and kind of work on it. But again, it's always good to have these skills under your belt, because again, the more diversity you have, it will be good for you.
Correct. Anytime. Yeah. So there are two more questions. I think they are very generic. I think we answered those. So Dhaval, I'll respond on the pay scale thing. Don't worry. Okay. Bhavani asked, are there any blockchain projects which use data science? Have you come across any projects which use data
I'm not
science?
aware of those actually.
Yeah.
So
Need to
Fetch AI is trying to do something where they're building nodes which can run AI agents on them. I'm not sure if that is related, but yeah.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Um, guys, any more questions? I think we'll open the floor, like, if anyone wants to ask questions directly. And also, yeah, one more question, Pratik, Ashay is asking the knowledge of Oracle at the beginning.
I think oracles are something which is hyped just due to the term itself. To be honest, it's just a 10-minute thing if you go and learn about oracles. Oracles are nothing but, let's say you have a smart contract application and you need some data points which does not exist in blockchain. For example, weather related data. What is the temperature today? So oracles give us the ability to make API calls from the smart contracts. That's it. And Chainlink has its documentation wherein you can just import the Chainlink smart contract. You can follow through through their library. You can use it, import it, and use it, and you'll be able to make those API calls. That's it.
Awesome. Ashay, good. Any follow-ups? Any other questions, guys? Okay. Okay. Hey Nikhil, we answered that, I'll take that offline, about the job market scene. Okay. I think on that note, we were supposed to speak for 30 minutes. We spoke for 50 minutes. Thank you so much. So Pratik, this is such a dope, man. And such a candid conversation. Thank you so much. And I think I've been getting already a lot of responses that the session is too good. So thanks a lot for doing this. And yeah, any last comments, and we'll close this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I just had
Go
one
ahead.
question. Can I ask that?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, it was on the previous Oracle one. So what do you think about hybrid smart contracts? Are they a hype as well?
I mean, if you have some requirements of using external data sources on your contracts, then you could go with hybrid contracts. I think there are a lot of projects doing that. For example, prediction markets. So let's say you have to predict if the price of Ethereum will go up or down in next 5 minutes. So I guess there are projects which are using oracles for fetching the price data and making the final decision for settlement. And uh, I can't recall right now, but I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of projects which are doing similar kind of stuff.
Awesome. Any last comments, thoughts, suggestions, Pratik, for the team?
I mean, I'll just repeat my starting point. Just go into it and kind of dive into projects. Don't worry about theory and don't have that fear in mind that if I'm doing this right or wrong. Just go about it. Like even like while working for a company, what you do generally, the day job is to work on a project. So that is the best way to go about it. That's all.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate. And I think on that note, might be a round of applause, to Pratik. Thank you, Pratik, for
That would
doing
be too
this.
much.
Yeah, no. But thank you, man. This is really great. Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, guys, and have a great evening. Cheers. We'll come with some other interesting sessions very soon.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.